Hello everyone, welcome to our Egyptian online seminar group. First, take hold of, then if you have any questions, you can ask our speakers after the presentation. I have great pleasure of welcoming dear Professor Trevor Hooper, Emeritus Professor of Management Accounting at Sussex University and an Honorary Professor at Victoria University of Wellington and Essex University. Dear Professor Susan Smith, Professor of Accounting and the Deputy Director of the School of Management at the University of College London. Dear Professor Garry Carnegie, Emeritus Professor of RMIT University and Associate Editor of Accounting, Auditing, and Accountability Journals. Dear Professor Joan Ballantine, Professor of Accounting at Ulster University. Now we'll start our seminar with the Professor Trevor Hooper.
Okay. Right, thank you for attending this session. We're very pleased that you've joined us. And the message really that we want to put across is we think there are major changes that should be and are probably going to happen in accounting education. And I've selected these three other people because they've all been involved with very significant events. But I would like to say also there's been lots of other people involved in this work as well. I've not got time to attribute them all, but if there's anything, I would like this session to be devoted to all those people who have sought, researched, and actually exercised major changes in accounting education. Next slide, please. Right, basically, what this is going to cover, we're going to start with Garry from Australia, who with colleagues done a series of articles redefining what accounting should be. Now, he will explain this in more detail, and he's not abandoning the technical issues in accounting, but arguing that given automation and other things, there are other factors as well. That accounting is not just a business, but it's a social and moral practice. It's to do with sustainability and proper accountability. And it has a wider range of constituencies than just shareholders and businesses. Then Susan will be talking, and Susan with others has been creating a really interesting accounting streams project. And basically this is providing from academics are generating this material themselves, and they're generating it free for distribution, and they're not paid. And this is providing teaching materials which is more consistent with the pedagogical changes many of us are seeking, and also the sort of the definition of accounting that Garry is putting forward. And then finally, Joan will be talking, because Joan's been heavily involved in the UK with a quality assurance exercise, which actually sets benchmark standards for accounting degrees. And this is important because the recent changes have moved from a tick box approach of saying, no, they need to do so much on this topic, and this topic. And the emphasis is much more on developing lifetime skills of students. Next slide, please. Yeah. Now, the calls for reform are not new. You can go back 50 years. There's been a series of reports, often joint reports with people from the accounting profession, academics, employers, about the need to change accounting education. Having said that, the pace of change has been quite slow. But on the other hand, as we're trying to say today, the pace may be changing. And we can see a kind of three sets of groups of people that are seeking change, which are very similar. If you look at accounting education researchers and many teachers, many argue that there needs to be a less didactic and more dialogic teaching. And rather than the lecture and the routine bookkeeping exercises done in class, more case study work, say simulations, role-playing, collaborative projects, and so on. So they're arguing again for a skills, not primarily a topic-based curricula. Now, this actually tallies with a lot of academic professional practitioners' report, which have said we want greater skill development. And what employers want is they want students with good communication skills who are capable of doing continual learning, because much of what they learn during their degree or whatever will be very different in 5-10 years' time. And much more emphasis on interdisciplinary problem solving skills. And then academics, particularly more research-based academics, are arguing, no, a lot of accounting education doesn't have sufficient incorporation of research findings and research topics. And consistent with Garry's definition, no, saying there needs to be much more teaching on sustainability, accounting for sustainability, accountability, and accountability not just to shareholders, but to civil society. There needs to be more on government and third sector accounting issues, ethics, and the role of accounting in development. And a lot of you, it will vary, but a problem in the UK and some domains is they want better integration between professional and university courses. Next slide, please. So why is this happening? Why is there increasing pressure for reform? Well, firstly, there's pressures of globalization. The teaching requires less national emphasis. Accountants need to be much more aware of international tax regimes, accounting standards, international standards, as well as their own domestic accounting standards. But most importantly, there's a shifting demand for the type of accountants that people want. IT is important here. We know that IT is replacing routine bookkeeping and financial analysis. We don't know where artificial intelligence is going to take us, but it may well be that some of the analytical roles of accounting by accountants may be able to be done by artificial intelligence. Now, the jury is out on how this will change demand for accountants. There is some argue that because of more rules on tax audit, regulation, the movement of accounting into environmental, social and governance reporting, risk analysis, cybersecurity, the demand for accountants may go up. But what is quite clear is that demand will be for a different type of accounting. They've got to be multi-skilled, they've got to be able to have strategic insight, they've got to have technological expertise, particularly in information technology, global awareness. They've got to be able to work in multidisciplinary teams, and they've got to be able to combine technical accounting knowledge with advice and help to their problem. And lastly, there is an issue here of recruitment. In some jurisdictions, the demand or entry into accounting degrees is declining. Young people are not finding accounting degrees sufficiently attractive or in tune with their own values. And also, many employers are reluctant to recruit accounting graduates. Years ago, when I was head of department of Manchester, I once asked a partner of a big firm, why don't you recruit more of our accounting students? And he said, Would you want to work with somebody who wants to specialize in accounting at 17 years old? Now, to some extent, that reflects on our degrees, what we taught, the type of people that we may be attracting. And again, this is something that I know Garry feels strongly about and would like to change. So I'll finish there. I'll turn over to Garry now. Thank you.
Your mic is muted, Professor Garry.
Okay. Well, I was just saying there, Trevor, that it was a very nice introduction, quite succinct. I think there are a lot of challenges facing the accounting profession. I think the profession's a bit stuck, a bit bogged, and seems to be finding it hard to move on. I do know quite a few of the attendees here tonight, so hello to you and hello to everybody. I can tell we're up to 57 participants. You know, I don't know if you ever think about this, but when you have 57 participants like students in the classroom to speak to, you actually have a lot of influence. You really do. And I think accounting academics in general, have a lot of influence on the way people develop and move into a career, a professional career in the case of accounting. And I think we probably underestimate our influence because the people who are the last ones to be influential before people go into the accounting profession are us. We have the last say in terms of setting them up for a career in accounting. It's a very influential role, but I think some of us dismiss it or don't think about it enough. And I think we can all be incredibly influential in our roles, more than we possibly are at the present time. Now, the title is meant to make you a little bit intrigued beyond the mere doing of accounting. I wouldn't like to go to your classrooms personally if you were just teaching how to do accounting. I don't think I'd find that particularly interesting, even though I might have to learn things. I definitely want to pass the exam, but if I could learn something as well, that would be good. But I need to be motivated. I need to know why this accounting is important, or is it just numbers? So what is accounting today? Now, some of you already know this. You teach students. You may have a definition of accounting that you've been teaching for 1 year or 40. I don't know how long you've been teaching the same definition of accounting, or do you give the students a different one every year? Or do you have a debate over what is the definition of accounting? Now, why should we answer this question? Well, I think it's an incredibly important question in accounting and in business and in sustainability and in the natural environment and on the planet and for the planet. Why? Because if you can't explain what accounting is, what the heck are students spending 3 or 4 years studying it for? That's a long time, isn't it, to study accounting? But if you can't get across what it is, well, how are they going to know what it is? Like what it does, for example, and so on and so forth. So we really need to inform people, particularly our students, particularly at first year, as to what accounting is, because that sets up the study of accounting at university. But sadly, definitions of accounting are quite dated. They date back to at least the 1940s and are definitely, I say definitely, past their use by dates. They've been done to death and they are dead, I'm sorry to say. So the next slide, please. So some of you have probably seen this definition. I was at a conference recently in Italy and I showed someone these slides and she said, oh yes, I teach that definition. That one, yeah, that's exactly the one I teach. The American Institute of Accountants, it's not known as that anymore, it's the AICPA. It defined accounting, and I will read this because it's incredibly dull and boring, and I'll read it a little bit slowly so I can help make it even more boring. Oh yes, the art of recording, classifying and summarising in a significant manner and in terms of money transactions and events which are, at least in part, of a financial character and interpreting the results thereof. Now, is that really going to switch anyone on? Really? It is just so dull and so boring, and it's so wrong. And why do I say that? Well, accounting is simply not a mere technical practice. It's not a mere neutral, benign technical practice. And other people have said this too. It's increasingly being said. And yet we don't seem to be able to move away from this. Now, I'm not going to try to give a reason for it, but it's too late. We've got to move on, really. So, next slide, please. So there were three of us about 5 years ago, almost exactly to the day, all colleagues at RMIT at the time, and the P there is Lee Parker of AAAJ fame. But it was decided to propose a multi-dimensional definition of accounting in accordance with its substance. Now, you know the accounting profession is big on substance over form. Is that right? No one's nodding, but I assume you're saying, yes, I've heard about that. Well, why can't the definition of accounting deal with the substance of accounting? So this definition says accounting is a technical, social and moral practice concerned with the sustainable utilisation of resources and proper accountability to stakeholders to enable the flourishing. Why not? Why can't we flourish? The flourishing of organisations, people and nature. Now, I don't know if you've seen a definition before of accounting that actually deals with the importance of the sustainable utilisation of resources. Now, why not? I don't know. I don't know why this hasn't happened yonks ago, really. And I'm not aware of another one. So there you go. I think accounting has to include or work to a definition that is concerned about the sustainable utilisation of resources. Why not? Why not? Now, why has this definition been proposed? That was one of the things I was asked to talk to by Trevor. Well, it says here, accounting in essence, the essence of accounting is a practice of technical rigour. I don't deny that. It's one of social responsibility. And it's one of moral means and purpose. So accounting is, in essence, in substance, in practice, it's multi-dimensional. So next slide, please. And I want to whiz through this one, but I don't want people to be confused and saying, oh, I'm not clear about what you're saying. So accounting is not merely an ensemble of techniques, concepts and procedures. I think the way it's taught, and according to certain textbooks or instructions that we use, I think it is often seen as just a technical practice, an instrumental pursuit. Oh dear, I have to be good at accounting to be an accountant. That doesn't mean you have to think a lot about accounting. You just have to do it. There you go. But it's also a social practice. And when you think about accounting, and I know a lot of people here tonight are from universities, but think about the KPIs now adopted in universities, particularly those forced upon or pushed upon or required to be met by us as academics, and they're research-focused, teaching-focused, engagement-focused, you name it. The thing I noticed during my career at RMIT is I eventually got to the point where I didn't know how many KPIs I had. I was a head of school, and I reckon I had thousands. I couldn't tell you what they were, but I had them. So accounting is something that underpins and enables organisational action, which really means accounting influences our behaviour. It's about setting us up to do things. And it moulds organisational culture and social beliefs and orders our lives. Yes, accounting orders us around. Orders us around. Such as by means of KPIs that are often aggressive, unrealistic, perhaps stupid, or if you don't like KPIs, they're metrics, but it's the same thing. And accounting doesn't seem to be too interested in who are all the stakeholders. It seems to be about, the owners, they're the only people that really count, and so on. And accounting is a moral practice. Its actions and inactions help shape the moral order of organisations and society. For example, if you think accounting's not a moral practice, think about audit, external audit. Now, you may not realise this, but when stock exchanges came along and people wanted to float their companies and raise more capital, it was felt that if these companies don't have auditors, no one will subscribe for the shares. Because some of these people look like, pretty dodgy, and they're going down and digging holes in the ground and putting tracks on the land and so on and so forth. And so auditors were enlisted to actually give credibility to accounting information, to provide trust. And now we've moved into internal audit. We still have external audit. We have things like code of ethics for professional practice. We have audit committees. We have non-executive directors who are there to ensure companies don't become dodgy and do bad things. That's all about morality. All of these things are about morality. And if we don't tell students accounting is a moral practice, well, they're not going to know, and they're going to be wrong. So, next PowerPoint.
Garry, 5 minutes more.
Yeah, I'll move through pretty quickly now. So, I think we need to focus down on what are the key elements of accounting. And I'm just going to say quickly, when we teach accounting, the most fundamental things are the nature, roles, uses, and impacts. Impacts is crucial. We have to actually know what accounting does. The accounting profession seems to be quite good at setting standards, and yet I'm pretty sure it doesn't properly evaluate the effects of those accounting standards, whether intended or not. So next PowerPoint, please. So a few of us, 5 authors altogether, I'll give you the reference details soon, have endeavoured to set up what's called a public interest framework for multi-dimensional accounting. Yes, work has been done on this. It's available for people to read. It's available to prepare your lecture materials. It's available to teach. And I think the students would be grateful if you actually taught accounting across its full dimensions. Now, these are key questions that come up for accounting as a technical practice. The students say, oh, well, how do you do accounting? I need to know how to do it. And that's fine. But then we don't ask this one much. What conventions drive what accounting does and fails to do? We don't seem to change accounting concepts at all. The reporting entity concept and so on. They're fundamental to the way if you like, accounts are put together, externalities and so on and so forth. Social, what are the impacts of accounting upon people, organisations, society, nature and the planet? Accounting is not impactful, it's not unimpactful. It's not unimpactful. And yet we don't seem to sort of think about it terribly much, which really makes me wonder how accountable accounting is itself. Is accounting accountable? Because it requires things to be done, but doesn't seem to have any accountability for it. And then for a moral practice, what should accounting do? And what should accounting not do? Now, in terms of changes we're seeking, engagement, we want to engage in interdisciplinary, multidisciplinary approaches. We want accounting to actually adopt an aspiration for shaping a better world, enabling the flourishing of organisations, people and nature. And we really want accounting to serve the public interest. Don't tell me accounting is the language of business. I've had a complete, what would I say? I'm over the top with accounting as a language of business. I think we're all being sucked in, and I think it's time to say accounting is to serve the public interest. Next slide, please. So I firmly believe that we all need to pull together. There's now 68 people here, all listening. So turn up your ears, because we need to work together and we need to help change the way accounting operates and impacts the world. Are we happy with it now? I don't think so. I'm not saying abandon accounting, but accounting can do a lot better. So we need greater understanding within the accounting profession, practitioners, educators, students, researchers, regulators, policymakers and governments, of accounting's positive and negative nature, roles, uses and impacts in the world. Why not? Accounting seems to be at the nub of nearly everything. Performance seems to be a passion, if not an obsession. And aggressive increasing performance is also equally a problem. So we need to increase awareness of accounting's key elements and how a revised definition reframes policies and practices. And it's not I or me who should do this, it's we. We all have to enable accounting, because it doesn't seem to be doing it, to shape a better world. Next slide, please. This is the last slide, I think. Here's a couple of things that you might like to note. These are papers I've been involved in recently. They were both published in the last few months of last year. One appeared in the CPA journal in the US. It was quite a battle to get that in there, I have to tell you. There was quite a debate went on. And in the end, they were delighted to publish it. And the other one is Meditari Accounting Research. And you can see by the title that it's about how accounting can shape a better world, framework analysis and research. So on that note, I'll sign off. Thank you for listening.
Yeah, thank you, Garry. Excellent. Bang on time. All right, over to you, Susan.
So thank you, Garry. And I think you set up the question very nicely to explain what we've been doing in the Accounting Streams project. So what's the problem? I think Garry has outlined some of the issues around accounting and sometimes how it's taught and understood by our students. And for them to really thrive in the contemporary environment, they need to be thinking in new ways. They can't be thinking in a black and white way, everything's right or wrong. They need to understand the subtleties around that and understand where uncertainty lies and where they can add value as accountants in the modern workplace. So going beyond the technical, of course the technical is important, but they need to go beyond now, I think. and really understand the judgments that they're making and be able to do that confidently and in an ethical manner. So there are a number of catalysts and challenges that accounting educators have been facing in recent times. There's the mainstreaming of sustainability through ISSB standards, CSRD, impacting the syllabus of professional bodies, which of course then filters down into the syllabus in degrees, particularly those that are aligned to professional qualifications. We're seeing, as Garry mentioned, AI, and Trevor mentioned it too, AI impacting the workplace, which is in some ways we're seeing potentially moving beyond accountants simply being viewed as technical. Clearly need to be able to do it, but there's a lot of AI assistance and technology out there that mean that it is not the sole focus of accountants in the workplace. Also, we're going to hear from in a little while, Joan, talking about the quality standards that she's been involved in the QAA accounting benchmarks. I'm not going to say any more about that right now, but it's another influence that is nudging educators to change how they're approaching their teaching of accounting. So with all these issues, and I heard a number of discussions that we were having in the accounting community many times, where people were saying, oh, we just can't change things. It's, you know, we can't, we don't have any agency. I became a little bit frustrated and brought together a group of people who were part of these conversations, but were also advocating for change to see if there was anything that we could do. So effectively a grassroots group, and we discussed various approaches that we might be able to take to galvanize a little bit of change in our own small way. And we alighted on the idea of developing a textbook in a slightly different manner, an online textbook that incorporated Garry's definition of accounting and tried to build on that, building in sustainability, building in ethics, and also to ensure that the contributors were a wide range of academics, not just within the UK, but globally, to ensure that we were having experts writing the various different units. So that's the story behind accounting streams and how we
Susan, 10 minutes left.
Yeah, how we came to develop the textbook. So what does it look like? Well, it's a free textbook. We're very clear that it's free to all. It's open access, so it's available on our website, which is shown there. It's accompanied by an accounting streams resource, instructor resource centre, where there are various case studies. There's some accounting songs that somebody developed. There's a whole range of different supporting materials that you can access there. We also hold a number of workshops and webinars throughout the year. At the moment, some colleagues are working on a new mini textbook called Grand Challenges, Accounting as a Solution. So we're trying to reframe things in a really positive way that people can use, and in their teaching they can use it wholly or partially, or use it to fill gaps in their curriculum. Who's using it? Well, it's being used in over 123 countries, according to our data analytics. And we've had to date over 55,000 interactions, and it's growing, just to give you a feel for the spread of the textbook. this just gives you a flavour of how we approach the introduction to accounting. We talk about where accounting comes from, what's its purpose, how do we define accounting, to try to situate the students' knowledge in that really important opening unit. Moving on, I'm just going to show you the interactive features. So there are reflection points embedded in each chapter. Students click on them and they can see that building across the bottom of each page. There's also multiple choices. They can check their answers immediately as they go through the textbook. So you can use those in class, or you can use them, set them for independent study. There's embedded case studies. This is an example of sustainable management accounting. You can see that with this company, which is a fashion retailer in Portugal, that they make transparent all the prices for their goods. So you can see where the profit lies and everything else. This gives you a view of the resource centre. As I said, that's for instructors. You can register via our website, and there's a number of different things in there. If you want to contribute, it gives you some guidance about how you can contribute resources and have them published. Now, importantly, when the resources are published, you can see case study here from Sam Bell at Bristol. They are published and people get allocated a DOI so that people can track the impact or the usage, downloads and views of those case studies that they've developed. And you can see here some of the metrics on one of the quick case studies, and they're much higher now. I took that screenshot a few days ago. And we also have some gamification. Somebody has been developing a range of games aligned to the textbook, which helps with practice and consolidation of some of the key accounting concepts, freeing up space in class for the discussions and some of the more qualitative aspects. There's a GPT that we're trying out at the moment that we've developed. So if anybody would like to try it out and give us some feedback, that would be amazing. So you can see there's a broad range of different resources that align to the textbook. If you're interested in finding out more, please use the textbook and resources. Let us know your feedback. This is an evolving project. Join the mailing list if you want to find out what opportunities there are. There are lots of opportunities as reviewers to get involved, to contribute resources, to come along to our events and so on. You can follow us on LinkedIn. We've got a LinkedIn group. As I said, you can contribute. So keep your eyes peeled for opportunities if you're interested in getting involved. So that's it from me, and I'm going to hand over to Joan.
Okay, so well, thank you, Garry, Trevor and Susan, and hello everyone. It's nice to be here. And I want to continue on the theme of redefining accounting and reforming pedagogy to meet contemporary challenges. So Trevor and Garry have talked about the challenges, and it's clear that a lot of work needs to be done. We're stuck in the dark ages in terms of what we're doing in the classrooms. So Susan, you've talked about a particular initiative that's going on that has international reach. So I'd like to talk about developments that have been going on in the UK, where the UK accounting academic community, in conjunction with national and international professional accounting bodies, employers and students, have developed or co-created an accounting benchmark statement, all with oversight from what is called the Quality Assurance Agency for Higher Education in the UK. And I was reflecting as Trevor in particular and Garry were speaking, and I've written a few notes down here, and you were calling for reforms in your slide 3 and slide 4, Trevor, and the fact that we need a new type of accountant. And Garry, you were saying many good things there about the public interest, and we need to come together. We need to make accounting accountable. I love that phrase. And actually, as I was reflecting, I firmly believe, not just because I've been heavily involved in this, that this accounting benchmark statement addresses all of those things. So we think that it's not just got applicability. This statement is applicable to every single university that provides an accounting degree in the UK. So that's across England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland. But we also believe that this statement has international applicability and has really, we argue, it's like a blueprint or a roadmap that we can address some of these issues that Trevor and Garry have been talking about. So what is the Quality Assurance Agency? Most of you want to know, first of all. Next slide, please. It's essentially, next slide, it's a independent expert body, and it works on behalf of the entire higher education sector in the UK. But it's actually, I'm not sure if you're aware, it's only one of a number of quality assurance bodies around the world. The QAA does a lot of work with universities and accrediting bodies, professional accounting bodies, etc., all around the world. And as such, is recognised internationally as part of this broader network of agencies that share common goals for higher education in terms of comparability, transparency, and trust in the higher education system. The QAA and also other international quality assurance bodies are concerned with safeguarding academic standards in subject areas. So these could be areas from mathematics to physics to history to whatever, and also accounting and finance and management. And interestingly, to the best of my understanding, the QAA is the only body that requires these benchmark statements to be developed. Next slide, please. So the next slide just gives you a kind of visual representation of the global reach of the QAA. So it's not, although these standards have been developed in the UK, it has significant impact right across the world. Okay, next slide. So what are benchmark standards? So they essentially define expectations of what graduates should know, what they should understand, and what they should do. So it reflects, Garry, the sort of thing you're talking about. It lays it out. There's been a lot of work done here. I'll talk about the accounting one in a moment, but there's been a lot of work already done to provide a kind of a roadmap. They're developed and owned by the academic community. So it's the community, and you were talking about that, Garry. I think you said something like, we need to all get together. We need to be working together to resolve this problem. And that's exactly what the accounting benchmark statement we've done. So they're owned and developed and owned by the community in conjunction with key stakeholders. In our case, for example, employers and the professional accounting bodies and students. They're used to support academics at all levels of the life cycle of a degree. So from design, approval, monitoring, and review. And they enable benchmarks, they enable flexibility and innovation at an individual degree level and therefore institution level, but yet they maintain shared standards. Okay, next slide, please. So why does any of this matter beyond the shores of the UK? Well, benchmarks provide transparent. That's really important because people talk about standards, but they don't actually, they're not clearly articulated somewhere. So they provide transparent academic standards that are actually recognized beyond the UK. They enable comparability of academic standards across borders, and they help national and international employers, students, and institutions understand graduate capabilities. An important last fourth point, for accounting, we believe that our benchmark statement that has recently been developed provides a blueprint or a roadmap to advance this global agenda that Garry and Trevor and Susan have been talking about, to redefine and reform both accounting curriculum and pedagogy. So it's not just the curriculum, but it's the pedagogy. In other words, how do we deliver the accounting curriculum? Next slide, please. So this is the benchmark over here on the left. It was published in April 2025, so it's kind of hot off the heels. I'll put in a link when I'm finished here to it, so you can all get access to it. And the statement I've already mentioned was developed or co-created by a team of 24 people representing the UK academic community. So we had all sorts of specialists there, all sorts of academics from different levels. We had the national and international professional bodies, employers and students. So that's bringing together the entire kind of range of stakeholders. Just to note, there have been previous iterations of the statement. It was last revised in 2019. And there have been, but this has been the most significant revision compared to previous versions. And there are a number of key elements if you want to go in and have a look at the statement in terms of opportunities to redefine and reform. Okay, so in terms then of thinking about the kind of the basic principles or the purposes of an accounting degree, we have a huge opportunity here to look at this statement, to get ideas about what we might do in terms of designing, redesigning, validating our accounting degrees. So really, Garry, listening to you, we are not in the accounting benchmark statement. We are not abandoning the technical elements of accounting, but we are saying that the purpose of an accounting degree should be that students need to understand accounting's role in socioeconomic context and how to have responsible governance. This is maybe, you know, is accounting accountable actually? There's also a need for students, we argue, in the degree to develop ethical professionals and responsible citizens. So that's what we suggest we as accounting academics need to do. There's a need to move beyond profit and capital measurement to broader value creation. There's a need to embed sustainability and other perspectives. And there's a need to consider non-profit context. These are things that Trevor and Garry, you both have said there. These are the things we need to do. So we've done it. Okay. Now, interestingly, when we came to design this statement, we did read on the literature. We did read up on what was out there in the literature, what were the arguments, etc. And some of us that were involved in the team of, you know, revising the statement also have been advocates of this sorts of things. Just over to the right, there's many other important things we say in this statement, but we argue that it's also really important to equip students, accounting students, to manage change, uncertainty, and complex judgment. We're not doing enough of that at the moment in our accounting degrees. And all of this, we should say, the learning should be grounded in research and critical debate on accountability. Next slide, please. Now, we do recognise when we were designing this with the professional accounting bodies, there were some disputes, and you know, we had quite a lot of good conversations around the process of accreditation and how that was potentially restricting us. So we do recognise in the document that accounting education sits in a contested space, where on the one hand, there's a need to balance academic intellectual development of accounting students with, on the other hand, the professional accounting body requirements, i.e. accreditation. And lots of people will say we can't change anything because of accreditation, and that's just not right. That argument is just not right. The professional accounting bodies were involved in the design of this here, and we come to an agreement about this. This space that we're talking about is influenced by multiple stakeholders, including the parents of students. Okay, so we need to do a re-education job. Now, we argue that this contested space and the tensions that arise from it could lead to a focus on technical and non-critical content. And that's actually what's been happening with accounting education, not just in the UK, but everywhere. And this is what you're arguing against, for example, Garry, that we need to do something different. We need to still have a focus on technical issues, but move way beyond that to this socioeconomic idea. We argue in our benchmark statement that degree programs that focus only on technical and non-critical contents fail to meet the accounting benchmark statement. And that's actually quite a serious statement to make, given that these here are upheld by the Quality Assurance Agency. Next slide, please. So we have other opportunities to redefine accounting and pedagogy, in that the benchmark statement also requires UK academics to address or embed the following cross-cutting themes in its accounting programs. You've got, for example, I'll not go through all these, but equality, diversity, and inclusion. And what we do in the statement, we provide lots of examples of how you might bring in various elements related to EDI. So we talk about things like slavery, gender equality, human rights violations, tax justice, and different things like that. And we also give examples of how you might integrate some of these cross-cutting themes across different types of modules. Okay, so there's a lot in those 5 cross-cutting themes. Next slide, please. So what we do here in terms of the previous revision that was made to the benchmark statement, we moved away from identifying kind of traditional subjects like management accounting, financial accounting, etc., to thinking about accounting degrees as encompassing 12 key areas of knowledge, understanding, and subject skills. And the idea behind this is that we're hoping that when academics engage with this, something like, for example, accountability, responsibility, and trust, that just won't feature in one module or one course. It will be weaved into a number of modules or a number of courses. So that's the idea for moving away from a subject idea of how accounting is to these broader areas. Next slide, please. A lot here, but here's other opportunities. So not only do we talk about the content of what should be in an accounting degree, we talk about the diversity, the need for a diversity of learning and teaching strategies. This is another opportunity. So we argue, for example, amongst other things, for the need to consider using alternative, innovative pedagogies, things that'll get us away from chalk and talk and the rote learning that so many surface learning students, that so many of our accounting students use. We also argue for a whole range of skills development to address the sorts of things that Trevor, Garry, and Susan have been talking about. So there's a huge emphasis in the standard on critical thinking and skepticism, but other things like entrepreneurialism, okay? Recognizing that not all of these students go into the Big Four. And we also, there's a huge section in the statement on the different types of assessment that we argue accounting academics should be engaging with. So not just the traditional, like exams, coursework, but using other things like unstructured case studies, so kind of your more portfolios, as you see here, other things like debates, critical media, creative media, etc. Okay, next slide, we're nearly there. So we also, towards the end of the document, so in addition to talking about all of those issues, and by the way, providing you with lots of examples about how you might integrate all of those thinkings, okay? And remember, the hard work has been done. We've had this team. We worked for about 8 months in total on this accounting benchmark statement. We've done a tremendous amount of work in trying to look at what's best practice out there. So the final thing that we have in the statement are these standards. So these are the standards that one would need in the UK to be awarded first a 2-1, 2-2, etc. accounting degree. This is just an extract. There are actually 4 categories of achievement you see over here on the left-hand side, and you can maybe go in and have a look at those because we've done all the hard work. This took forever, to a long, long time to come up with this here and get it agreed. Okay, next slide. So this is the statement here. This is the link to it. So we would argue that the accounting benchmark statement, it offers a blueprint or roadmap to inform curriculum frameworks globally and to address the sort of reforms that Trevor, Garry, and Susan, and so many other people in the literature have been calling for the last 50 years, people, 50 years, and nothing really much has changed. We argue that this, we don't suggest it in the document, but we believe that this statement could be used nationally and internationally. And the last slide is just a few thoughts, because I think it would be foolish not to recognize that there are structural constraints within your organizations in terms of trying to implement something like this. We always get the old chestnut that curriculum is actually shaped by professional accrediting bodies. And yeah, the professional accounting bodies do have a significant influence, but we can push back on that. And we have done exactly that in terms of developing this benchmark statement, which is applicable throughout the UK. There's also the old chestnut that the market always, you know, we're creating accountants for employability over disciplinary depth. Well, no, we've addressed that by thinking about the sorts of skills, the sorts of things that need to be addressed in an accounting degree to both meet the needs of the employer and to have this disciplinary depth. There is a problem also here with textbooks, which generally reinforce a narrow view of accounting. I think any one of us who's using textbooks, we should recognize that. And we address that in the standard by arguing that accounting academics need to use research-informed or research-led practices in their classrooms. They should be doing this. Final applications, just to finish, Trevor, I'm a minute before my time. There's issues around, well, are faculty going to have the knowledge to do any of this, to implement this? Do they have a capability? I don't think so. I think some academics do, but I think there's a need to upskill. I think there's also a need to mentor young people. They're early career researchers. You know, we come in, career researchers come in, or early career people come in to teach. We give them some training, some basic training at the higher university level, but what training do we give them about accounting pedagogy? What training do we give them? What insights do we give them? What guidance, support, mentoring, what do we give them? So I think we do need to support academics in particular who have limited knowledge of pedagogy. And to do that, I think we can develop communities of practice. We already have some of those around the world, but I think we could also be doing that at a local level. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Joan, and thanks to all of you. You've all been great, and you've all been bang on time, because one of the things that we're saying here is we've got to have a dialogue and dialogic education. So now I'd like to open it up to the audience for questions, comments, whatever. Perhaps one way of doing this is on the chat, or Mohammed,
Yes, thank you.
You normally do this.
Yes, thank you very much, dear Professor Hobara and Professor Garry, Professor Joan, and Professor Susan. And now, if anyone have any questions, you can use the raise hand functions, and I will open your mic to ask your questions. Also, if you have any questions, you can write in the chat.
Right.
Yes, Amir.
I've got one here from Amelia.
Anwar, yes.
Hi there. Well, can you hear me? I think I'm unmuted now. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, just not really a question, but I just thought if I bring this point up, I just wanted to see what the panel has to say. So I've done some similar sort of work, Garry, on the role of accountants towards the broader society, especially in terms of the moral practice and the ethical implications of that. And when I spoke to accountants, and that includes auditors as well as financial accountants, what sort of came out was it's not their job to have moral judgments. What they're trying to do is just making sure they're applying the right standards, they're using the right judgments in the financial calls that they make, and they sort of stay away with. So they had no opinion about is accounting a moral practice or not, right? So I couldn't engage with them in that discussion. So I just wonder what your thoughts are on that, and how do we bring those conversations in the practice, really?
Yeah, it's a good point. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. Look, when I was studying accounting, and for many years as an academic, auditors had to sign off the accounts saying that these financial statements give a true and fair view. A true and fair view. So they have already been adopting a moral view of accounting. They are meant to give a view on, are these accounts appropriate? Do they stand up to scrutiny? Is there any dodginess in the accounting? Are liabilities missing? And so on and so forth. Now we tend to say fairly present information in accordance with accounting standards. Now that could tell me that accounting standards are not interested in a true and fair view. Because that's what your people, the people you talk to, are saying. And I wouldn't accept that argument. I'd just push it back onto them and say, look, come on, you've converted yourself into a salesperson. And I'll tell you what, if, for example, let's say some bright spark thought that we could abandon auditing, I'll tell you something, I think it would be the end of stock exchanges. So auditing and assurance gives the capital markets the right to operate because it's a perspective on the morality of organisations who are reporting information which meets the grade. So I can't be told accounting is not a moral practice. If accountants want to think that, I think bail out soon, get a job in another discipline.
No, I completely agree, Garry. It's just, because the impression I got that from that was they can sort of hide behind the standards and the regulation, like this is not our job. We don't, as long as we're following. But I suppose we need to broaden that conversation.
Right.
Yes.
Right. I'll take one from the chat here. I can see Kennedy's waiting. I'll come to you. And hi, Danny. It's from Danny Chow. And he said, in some countries, taking a more critical perspective on accounting can be dangerous, as it implies political activism. But whereas taking a more technical perspective is, and making sure that regulatory compliance is much safer for your career. I'll ask the other team, but I would just say, actually, taking a safer form of accounting is in itself a political action. And non-contentious accounting is a political statement. And at the end of the day, as academics and accountants, what do we stand for in terms of the public interest? We have a role in society. It isn't just a way of making some money. I don't know if anybody else wants to comment on that.
I think it's a fair point, Danny, to make. But international accounting bodies operate, I assume, in these countries you're talking about. So if you take, say, the CCAB, I mean, the CCAB do some wonderful work, absolutely wonderful work on things like equality and all sorts of issues that are of relevance to accountants. So we can actually, if they're operating in these countries, then surely we can use that as a lever to argue for taking, a more critical perspective. Would that not make sense? To me, that would make absolute sense. Obviously, working within the bounds of you want to keep yourself safe. But I think we can use these international accounting bodies and the work that they're currently doing to actually help support us in our activism, even though we mightn't call it that.
Okay. Kennedy?
Yeah, thank you very much. My question would be, well, a question or a contribution. Yeah, I love the point that Garry made, and I'm an advocate of that as well. That's accountants oftentimes reduce accounting to simply the language of business. And now that there is this increased clamor for sustainability reporting, the question is, can we truly say that the definition proposed by the AAA and the AICPA, that accounting is the art of recording, summarizing, blah, blah, blah. Looking at what we currently have about ESG, do we still stand a chance to tell our students what accounting is through the lens of the AAA acclaimed definition of accounting? So I think that we should have a definition of accounting that incorporates the 3 dimensions of ESG, such that accounting does not just serve a proprietary interest, but serves the interest of the greater stakeholder. But even the standards released by International Financial Reporting Standards Board about accounting serving the interest of those who have financial stake is in itself not all encompassing. So I don't know what our thoughts are in having a definition of accounting that truly reflects what accounting should measure in the present day nature of accounting. Is that my thought?
Thanks, Kennedy. Susan, would you like to respond to that? Is she there?
I'll keep getting messages. That's why.
Oh.
Right. Can you hear me now? Yes.
Yeah.
So yes, I think we absolutely should reflect a modern day definition. I often, before with my students, I introduce a question to them and say, what do you think the most pressing problems are for accountants today? And I get it turns into a word cloud. And then you can start to talk to them about what they've put in. And, depending on your jurisdiction or your group, that could be very different. And then I say to them, well, come up with a definition of accounting to address these problems. Then I introduce Garry's definition very often, say, well, how does this encompass the problems you've identified? I think it's good to engage students with definitions so that they are sort of proactively thinking about it, as well as academics, obviously.
Okay. Right.
Could I just say too, sorry, Trevor, that
sure, no problem.
I think what a lot of accounting degrees do, and just talking to colleagues, from different parts of the world, I think we leave some of this to us too late. We leave some of this kind of thinking about problems, thinking about what accounting is, until maybe the 3rd year of an accounting degree, or until they get into a master's. And that's way too late. We really should be hitting them with this stuff from day one when they come in, so that they're used to thinking about accounting in a particular way, and they're used to being critical and having to think and having to make judgments. So I do think we are guilty of, pumping them full of double entry bookkeeping, for example, in 1st year. I mean, that wouldn't really be the place you would start if you were to start over again, would it? Surely you'd be talking about the context within accounting operates and spending weeks and weeks in that. So I think we should be doing stuff earlier.
Right. There's a comment here by Rand. Jesse, are you still there, and can you unmute? Because I'm going to ask you to answer this question. Rand says, true and fair proved problematic in the highly litigious US, where true is considered to have less wiggle room. That seems to be why it was rejected. Are you there, Jesse?
Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out how to unmute myself, Trevor. I'm not technologically savvy. I think this is. I found this to be very interesting. I really appreciate. I just happened to run across this this seminar. This takes me back many years. We're still addressing many problems that we thought about years ago and certainly have failed to address. I think it's going to be really tough here for a bit. over in the U.S. With the political situation, but I also think that this is not a situation that is unusual in many of the countries where people are involved these days, like the question before about it being politically unwise to be very critical about things. And I think there's a lot to be learned. I think we can share a lot across from those experiences. But yes, I think the public accounting firms in the US seem to really be more of the consulting firms. So I'm really not sure they're going to push against very hard. I'm going to push very hard for us to move into the public interest kind of moral areas. They say they are, and they've said that for the last 50 years, but it seems to be actually moving in the other direction at this point. Is that what you wanted me to say, Trevor?
Yeah, that's great. Thanks. Right, I'll go to a next question by Anna Pull. Thank you, Anna. I really like the comments around new to lecturing and lack of support on accounting pedagogy. Can you direct me to share a range of contemporary literature? Often module leaders are perceived as experts on their subject specialism, which is fine, but they may benefit from support on delivery and assessment techniques. I think that's Joan, isn't it, really?
Yeah, I mean, I think, sorry, who asked that question?
That was Anna Poole.
Right, okay. I think, Anna, I mean, there are lots of papers. I mean, there are an awful lot of papers. There's three journals that you could specifically go to get a lot of guidance on various pedagogies, etc. So Accounting Education, the Journal of Accounting Education, and Issues in Accounting Education. But there's also communities, Anna, I think, Anna, you in the UK, if you are in the UK, what I would advise you to do is I would advise you to join I'll just put it in the chat here. This is the BAFA Accounting Education. I think I've got this right, that you're looking for support and a community. So the BAFA Accounting Education SIG in particular, where you could get lots of support for, you know, discussing and thinking about different pedagogies, etc. But there are also, Anna, could you just let us know, are you from the UK? Because there are other such similar bodies all over the world, actually, that can help support you, and you can find your community, your kind of tribe of people, you know, that you can call on. So
right, thank you. Yeah, now just another question. I was just going to answer. Where am I? Yeah, it was a lady from Latin America, Mary Valdez.
Hi.
Hi, great to see you. And it's great to be having so much more contact with Latin American academics, because you're doing some exciting work there.
Yes, but it's challenging teaching. We have a lack of resources. There's no textbooks, for example. Many of the knowledge in accounting is not available due to language barriers. So I just get closer to all the literature in accounting, and especially management accounting, when I did my PhD in Canada. But before that, even though I was teaching and I was a practitioner, I wasn't aware of the many resources. So when I went to Canada and learned about all this, it was such a mind-blowing experience. So I want to share that, and I would like to, if possible, engage in some of the initiatives so I can maybe translate some of the texts to Spanish to make it more available to other colleagues and to expand the network. I'm part of the International Committee of the American Accounting Association. So we are discussing how we can make it more impact and more to broaden the scope and to connect scholars broadly. And I just find out about the resources, and I'm very happy to be here and learn of what you're doing. So thank you very much.
Well, we're happy you're here. I'll turn it over to my colleagues. What's a good way of, this is a bit sort of Anglo-centric with Australia, but I know one of the things that we are keen to do is to have a global dialogue, and a global and truly global, with developing countries, for example, in Africa and Asia, as well as Western countries. I'll turn it over. What's the best way to get involved?
I can only offer one small suggestion. For the last 5 or 6 years, I've been writing on an academia discussion site in my name, and there's been a lot of discussion on the sort of issues we're dealing with tonight. You know, there are lots of discussions. It's just that some of it is not readily accessible. But if you can check my email address at RMIT and write to me, I will send you the link to such things. And if anyone else would like this link, that's fine. But there are a lot of intensive discussions that are going on, and there's a growing number of people, mainly academics and particularly senior academics, who really want things to change.
Sounds
So
amazing.
that's one small matter.
Susan, we were talking about that this morning. What do you...
Yeah, I mean, there are many ways to get involved. And I think definitely with our group, we're looking to expand our reach further. So I suppose we'd appreciate your feedback in terms of what we currently have, how useful it is to you in your context. You know, there could be opportunities for case collection that's derived from South America, perhaps, or I don't know, lots of different things, translations potentially, because that would help with the language barrier, and you know, different ways to get involved, and potentially, you know, maybe at some point joining our advisory group. We've got a wide group of people who input into what we're doing. So lots of different potential ideas.
Thank you.
I've just got another one here while we've got you on, Susan. Tobias has said he's teaching a module on accounting for management students. Does any, so 1 or 2 modules for non-specialists, do any of your accounting streams courses, are they suitable for that cohort?
Yes, I'm currently using a number of the units from Principles of Accounting with non-specialists who are studying an MSc in management, and they work fine. I wouldn't necessarily use all of them because of my learning outcomes for that particular module, but I think that you can, you know, pick and choose, because it's a free textbook, it's open access, and you can supplement with papers to bring it up to the appropriate level.
Right.
Joan?
Any more questions?
Yeah, Joan?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you fine, yeah.
Oh, thank you. It's been marvelous presentations. I was just wondering a little about some of the questions that you're already raising now, and it's more about the role of pedagogy we talked a little about it, but so where is pedagogy in this space of things? We have theorization, there are politics, there are many things, and I'm just wondering where pedagogy comes in. And I think Susan's and Joan's brilliant presentations ask for me some tensions, for example, that when Susan, you talk about the role of cases, we move towards singularity, to something that is specific, that is context and all sorts of things. While, as I understand it from Joan's presentation, we could move towards universality through benchmarking, something that is more precise, that is in the sense of a layered notion of what knowledge can be taught through. I'm just wondering, are there like the types of tensions that I'm trying to address here, or are there more general questions about pedagogy that would benefit from the discussion? I think you're right, Trevor. I mean, there is a general question about knowledge and politics, but I think the implementation questions like Joan and Susan asked about pedagogy. Can we say something about principles of pedagogy, variations of pedagogy, notions of handling students that are at different levels of experience or other sorts of things that would be beneficial for how we appropriate or accommodate or whatever it is, the sort of broader questions that you rightly mentioned.
All right, Jan, it's great to see you.
Likewise.
I'll turn it over, I think, to Joan and Susan.
Yeah.
So, first, Joan.
Yeah.
You go.
Thanks,
first,
Jan. You're absolutely right, Jan. It's not just to be redefining the content, but redefining the pedagogies that we all use to deliver the content, because a lot of accounting staff are still using chalk and talk mainly and not doing anything else. Now, the benchmark statement, Jan, I put a link for everybody into the chat here, and what I would just suggest you do, everybody, if you've got the time and amongst all the other busy things you're up to maybe just to download it and have a read of it to get the essence. We don't go into detail about pedagogy, Jan, because that's not the purpose of the statement. The purpose of the statement is to get accounting academics who have a role to play in accounting education to think about using alternatives. So we do talk about, the statement is largely underpinned by the need to move away from rote learning. We don't say that, well, we do mention rote learning, but to do so through, for example, dialogic forms of teaching and learning. That would just be one example. Through critical approaches, but we don't go in, Jan, to each of these methods or these pedagogies and explain what they are, because that wasn't really the purpose of the thing. So you're right, there's a whole big job of work to be done. This is why I said at the very end of my slide that I do really think we need support. Accounting academics need support, because where do you learn all this stuff? You maybe do it at this university course that's at the center, but it doesn't focus on accounting. So this is where I think we need to develop more communities of practice, which is some of the questions people like Mary, that's what you're getting to. How do I get into a community of practice to learn more? And maybe this is just the start of it, Jan. Maybe after this, maybe some people will reach out and say, well, look, why don't you come and do a seminar? Why don't we start to get the ball rolling here in terms of the alternatives that we could use? There's lots of articles, etc., in journals about these different pedagogies, Jan, but we don't go into them in a detail, because that's not the purpose of the statement. But I do encourage everybody to read the statement to see what we're saying, and you'll see that it's all aligned with what you're saying, Jan, because we can't teach all this critical stuff just by standing up at the front of the room and chalking and talking. We can't do it. It's not possible. But I don't think we can do it. I don't think a lot of us don't have the skills to do it either.
Mm-hmm. I think what we would say is, you know, the materials work best with an active learning approach, and our kind of thinking around the resources by going for or by encouraging case studies, quick cases and extended case studies with teaching notes, is to try to scaffold people into that approach. Now, of course, it's not up to us to dictate how people teach. You can teach it in a very traditional manner, but I think our ideal would be to see an active learning type of pedagogy with case studies, role play, simulations, gamification to support that.
And I think the benchmark is consistent. But the benchmark, Susan, is consistent really with that message. Does that answer the question, John? I'm not.
No, well, I think you're completely right. I think but I think, as you're saying also, and I suppose that's what you say by learning opportunities and things like that. That it's about how can we think in terms of difference? Can we teach ourselves in terms of thinking differently? Which means that we can think. Can we teach the students to think in terms of dilemmas more than in terms of solutions? And can we teach people to appropriate a standard and a newspaper article and do something together to see whether the different versions of insight and how we respond to these things can be accommodated? Because we know that standards that they have a particular kind of language, which would be different from newspaper articles they might be even talking about, or the consequences of them. So it could be that the variations of the language that goes around, and also how students make experiment about creating boundaries about their arguments. That I think that they could possibly be weighted. It's the notion of making the text a resource rather than a hindrance. Thinking critically.
Yeah. I mean, basically, to me, that's the whole point of universities. If your course doesn't do this, it shouldn't be in a university, in my view. And I think when we're talking about being critical, obviously that's got different meanings, you know, but this is what employers want as well. They want people with critical analysis who can assess information, you know, can look at grey areas, make judgments. So if we're not doing this, the degrees are failing.
Exactly. And I'm really interested in Susan's book, seems to be having the possibilities of variations of insights from simulations and other sorts of things, and if we can embed if the book is an internet, it itself has the ability to interact. It's going to be very interesting to see how they can work. I mean, it's a pedagogical principle that's probably very difficult, or at least expensive to uphold. So it's going to be interesting to see how we can create such advancing types of documents or sources of teaching.
I think you guys in Scandinavia have done it better than a lot of places. I think actually we're coming to the end of our time, Mohammed. I think, we've run over our time. So thank you all very much for the time listening to us, and please keep up the good work, and please join us. It's the great thing with these is it's been collaborations between academics and I would argue, making a substantial degree of change possible. So please keep up the good work. Bye.
Thank you very much, Professor Hooper, and thank you very much, Garry, Professor Garry, and thank you very much, Professor Susan and Professor Joan. Thank you very much, everyone, join us today, and thank you very much for taking the time to present to us today. It's been appreciated.
Okay.
And I hope to see you soon in Egypt. You are very, very welcome.
I've been there, but only on Nile cruises.